At last, ladies and gentlemen, I present you an affordable RTX 3060 laptop, the MSI GF65 Thin. Expect nice in-game performance and more. The MSI GF65 Thin 2021 is basically the most accessible RTX 3000 gaming laptop we've tried this year. You heard that right. This new GF65 Thin iteration includes the RTX 3060 NVIDIA GeForce GPU, the 75-watt TGP version. As for the CPU, we're talking about a budget-friendly choice, an Intel Core i5 10200H, which, as you'll see, perfectly adds to the graphics card when it comes to gaming. Needless to say, this is an interesting downgrade and it's worth examining it in terms of temperature. This Core i5 10200H with 4 cores, 8 threads, 45-watt TDP during blended benchmarks, 2.4 gig base clock and 4.1 gig boost clock versus its tougher sibling, a Core i7 10750H with 6 cores, 12 threads, 55-watt TDP in Blender, 2.6 gig base clock and 5 gig boost clock. I mean, the slim chassis, 21.7mm, had a hard time withstanding the scorching heat of an overheating i7. Actually, the name i7 is already kind of self-explanatory. You mention it and you feel the overheating. But what about performance? Let's not forget that this NVIDIA GPU is more of a slim alternative. This GF65 Thin incorporates a 75-watt TGP RTX 3060, whereas its predecessor was powered by an 80-watt RTX 2060. Generally speaking, it seems that we can expect less power consumption, but how will this turn out for temperatures and noise? Nevertheless, GF65 Thin is the cheapest gaming laptop I've seen so far. Naturally, let's put this baby to test and see what it offers for its price. The chassis is practically untouched, so there is no point in discussing it too much. The materials used, the cooling system, ergonomics, everything the predecessor came with, have been 100% retained, which leads me to the point that the only things that come as a refresh are the GPU and the slightly improved display. As the name suggests, for a gaming laptop, this model is actually quite thin. Obviously, it doesn't stand a chance against the ultra-thin high-end gaming laptops, which don't exceed 18-19mm thickness, but it does have a substantially lower price. The chassis blends aluminum, the lid and the area around the keyboard, and plastic, the screen frame and the lower side of the laptop. To be honest, I really dig this aluminum stuff. It gives off a premium-like feeling, but its brushed aluminum feature is an absolute wreck when it comes to fingerprints. I'm still dreaming about the day when I get to see fingerprint-free brushed aluminum. When it comes to ergonomics, I was impressed by the low weight, considering the fact that the laptop hides a pretty massive and complex cooling system, and how the aluminum tends to add more to the overall weight than your average magnesium alloy or simple plastic. The edges of the screen are only 5mm thick. And to me, this seems to be the thinnest screen frame a gaming laptop can offer. The upper frame is a bit thicker, but it doesn't really bother me. In fact, I'm glad to see that the manufacturer did not give up on the integrated webcam. Rejoice, for you won't be forced to buy an aftermarket webcam in case your employer wants to see your magnificent shining smile. And boy, that's a huge money saver. These webcams have become ridiculously more expensive during the pandemic. The lower side of the laptop is pretty well vented, and I can't stress enough how much of a game changer a cooling pad can be, especially since summer is just around the corner. Just don't get any Chinese crap, okay? Do yourself a favor and buy a high-quality cooling pad, alright? Okay, thanks. Honestly, the keyboard is a downgrade compared to what MSI tends to offer. But let's give it the benefit of the doubt, because those fancy RGB per key SteelSeries keyboards are reserved for the premium models. The GF Thin line features a simpler gaming keyboard with red LED lighting and 3 levels of intensity. Nothing fancy. The keys have a bit of a rubber feeling, but fail in offering that spongy sensation I really like. The keystroke is smaller and the sound is somewhat louder than the aforementioned premium keyboards. Overall, contrary to the old belief, there actually is an in-between here. Take a bit of those quiet and soft keys with a long keystroke featured on those high-end MSI gaming laptops, add some rigidness, cut that keystroke in half, a trademark of so many other standard laptops, and there you go, the MSI GF65 Thin keyboard. As a mainstream gaming laptop, don't expect 100% sRGB and stuff like that. Well, 70% is not that satisfying either, but hey, the other model only had 62%. Still, the GF65 Thin is not suitable for intense professional photo editing, but its gaming capabilities add as a compensation. We're talking about high contrast, 1420 to 1 as of a maximum brightness of 320 nits and a very good black level of 0.23 nits. Although these results don't turn it into a great photo and video editing companion, I noticed that the screen does have a noteworthy color accuracy and color uniformity. And rather than keeping its predecessor's 120Hz refresh rate, this iteration has progressed to 144. Now that's the real deal. Intel Core i5-10200H plus NVIDIA RTX 3060 75W TDP sounds like an interesting combination, so let's see how things went. We've tested the duo in 6 games in order to get a better grasp of the system's capabilities. The results were surprisingly good. Basically, all the games were set on Max, Ultra, even Ultra Ray Tracing and DLSS on in Watch Dogs Legion, and ran at over 50 FPS. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, high quality gaming can be achieved on an entry, mainstream, budget-oriented gaming laptop. I mean, goddamn, the tiny GF65 Thin really packs a punch, and it delivers great performance in Metro Exodus and Watch Dogs Legion with RTX and DLSS on. Some older titles like Far Cry 5 and Shadow of the Tomb Raider on max settings are no match for this dream team of i5 and RTX 3060 75W. Over 80 FPS, but the rendering part is a bit of a letdown. The 4 cores and 8 threads of the i5-10200H pale in comparison to the 6 or 8 cores of more powerful processors. The Blender benchmarks pretty much sum up this downgrade, but once we switch the rendering to NVIDIA graphics, the new RTX 3060 outperforms last year's RTX 2070, and the difference is expressed through a serious percentage. The new CPU tends to better fight off the temperatures, the average difference being of 5 degrees Celsius, even better in some circumstances. Alas, it doesn't live to challenge the AMD processors, since the CPU forces us to live with an average of 70-75 degrees Celsius, occasional spikes of over 80 and rarely even over 90. The images here show the temperatures recorded in 3D Mark. The results are overall decent. The GPU does a slightly better job at not turning itself into a barbecue, as it very rarely exceeds the 70-80 degrees Celsius threshold. And now let me show you the temperatures while running AC Odyssey on the highest possible settings. CPU 45-47W TDP 75 to 95 degrees Celsius and GPU 75W TGP 78 to 84 degrees Celsius. The area above the keyboard has the same overheating tendency as the previous model. With CPU and GPU in max load, it's about 50 degrees Celsius, but the keyboard itself managed to be roughly 3-4 degrees Celsius cooler than its predecessors. More specifically, the results indicate an average of 32 to 42 degrees Celsius, a bit over human body's temperature. Indeed, it does feel kind of warm, but it's not bothering whatsoever. To be honest, I was expecting improvements in terms of loudness, but the manufacturer decided to give the RPM a more aggressive boost when the CPU hits the max load. Therefore, the laptop turned itself into an oversized and quite vocal mosquito of 50-51 decibels. Fortunately, the games did not add to this value. Instead, it stabilized in-game at around 45 decibels. Compared to its predecessor, the MSI GF65 Thin is more resilient. We managed to squeeze around 5 hours and 50 minutes of battery juice with the brightness set to 100 nits, first level of keyboard lighting, and the super battery saver mode activated through MSI Dragon Center. Almost 50 minutes longer than the i7 powered model. Do keep in mind, however, that Norton is a really irritating antivirus software. Initially, I completely forgot to turn it off and manually set the refresh rate to 60 Hz, so the antivirus ran in the background during the Modern Office test. Of course, I was shocked when the battery went dead after only 3 hours. The NVIDIA graphics card didn't say goodnight either, because of that troublesome 144 Hz refresh rate. So, a gaming laptop which delivers. GF65 Thin is the most affordable RTX 3060 powered laptop of the current lineup, and this is really important. On one hand, the Core i5-10200H is not suitable for rendering. On the other hand, it does a great job when playing games, and I dare to say that the little fellow and the NVIDIA RTX 3060 were meant for each other. GF65 Thin is a straightforward and honest laptop. It doesn't come with the fanciest chassis, but the lid and the area around the keyboard are made of aluminum, and that's cool, despite the fact that this brushed aluminum is a goddamn fingerprint magnet. The chassis is thin, and the model as a whole is notably light, 1.86 kilos, even surprisingly portable for a 15.6-inch gaming laptop. I'm sure many will find the short keystroke pleasant. As of me, I would have liked to be able to change the keys' retro lighting color, but every budget has its own limitations, and/or advantages. The quintessential aspect is that the games will run smoothly even when set on max quality, all of this with low noise and decent temperatures. I have to admit these aspects are very good considering the price. Ladies and gents, this was the MSI GF65 and I do hope I will see more like it, especially when cramming powerful components into a really thin and light build has become a state of the art. All in all, I hope you find this video useful. If you did find it useful, how about subscribing to our teeny tiny channel? It will be of great help. Catch you later.